Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Picardcast. I am your hoarse-voiced host this week, Rebecca. Fresh out of Chicago with my co-host, Brooke. Welcome back, Brooke.
Hi.
Hello. We had too much fun in Chicago.
Yeah, I have a voice, but I've been sleeping a lot the last few days because my sleep schedule is messed up.
Oh, I know. I've been going to bed. I don't know. I've been going to bed late, staying up into the wee hours, watching stuff. But yeah, so every intention of recording an episode while we were in Chicago just did not come together. But we are back this week with our recap of this week's episode 7. And once again, we do have a wonderful guest who we actually got to meet live and in person in Chicago. He was there with us. Welcome back, Steve Farshid, to the podcast. Welcome back.
Thanks for having me, guys. I always love being on.
Yeah. So, Steve, you came to Chicago, C2E2 as well. We got to meet you. You and I, Steve, went to the Picard panel together. Sat in and listened to that panel with Issa Briones and Evan Evagora.
Yeah, that's a tough name. It's I had to read it several times to kind of just to get it. I just keep saying Eva Longoria just over and over again.
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I want to say.
That's not who it is.
It's not. Kind of unfortunately, except for I really love this guy, so maybe not as unfortunately.
Oh, and
he was adorable.
Yeah, and Patrick Stewart says that he really likes him a lot because I listened to an episode of Happy, Sad, Confused today that came out this week. It came out on Tuesday, I think. And if you've never listened to it, it's just like an interview show. And he interviewed Patrick Stewart for the second time because he's already interviewed Patrick Stewart several years ago. But he talked about Picard and stuff. And I recommend if you love Sir Pat Stew and you want to hear him talk some more, and you want to hear some stuff about Picard and some of his other acting, then take a listen. All of them are a little under an hour, and also it's kind of like that Nerdist format where he does the intro or whatever, and Adam's intros can go a little long, but you could skip that and then just start. Yeah, but it was pretty good.
That's good to know. That's good to know that you can listen to a new episode of Happy, Sad, Confused and hear Sir Patrick Stewart talk about Picard. That's great. Yeah, one of the things that I took away from the panel was that Evan said that he grew up watching The Next Generation, and then from there went on to watch like all the other Star Trek franchises, but that Next Generation, he's a fan. Like, and so when he got this opportunity to be in this show, he was over the moon, like to be part of Star Trek.
And Rebecca, you can tell that he was super into it. I mean, everything that you can see his excitement. The fact that he's on all the fan boards and message boards, just reading about it, and in disguise, of course.
Yeah,
that's adorable.
Oh, he's so into it.
He was on all of the boards. He was on all of the. He's on in all these fan groups with fake Facebook profiles, and he's like, "You won't find me. You won't find me. You can try, but you won't figure it out. It's me."
I have a feeling that he listens to Picardcast. That's just a hunch.
Hey, Evan, if you're listening to Picardcast right now, we'd love to interview you.
Yeah.
So hit us up because I'm not kidding. We would love to interview you.
Yeah. She's definitely not kidding.
No, I'm absolutely not kidding. I 100% would love to interview you. So we are gonna, so for sure that Picard panel was absolutely great, and I'm sure if you do a search on YouTube, especially for the Picard panel at C2E2, you will definitely find, I'm sure you'll find that panel on YouTube. It's got to be up there by now. Steve, I know we've had you on before. How are you feeling about Picard as we're getting close to the end of the first season?
I mean, just hearing you say that made me really nervous. But
oh no.
Yeah, you know how it is. You don't want it to end. You know what I mean? Because you're never 100% sure what's going to happen in the future. And the way things are going, you never know if this is it. I mean, it doesn't feel like a one and done, obviously, the fan response and all that. But with a streaming service with pretty limited new content, you really never know. And I'm hoping, obviously, that I get more, but it's good. This episode for me obviously had some important things to it. Don't get me wrong, but seemed a little fan servicey. It kind of just, to me, focused on the fact that we got to see Riker and Troy on the screen again, and kind of got to catch up with their life and a lot about their life. The last 20 years, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. I'd love to see that all day long. But if this only has 10 episodes, I would really like this story to kind of progress a little bit quicker than it did in this episode.
Mm-hmm. So, this kind of, for me, this episode, I'm not going to lie, this definitely had a lot of fan service in it. Fan service the episode pretty much. Which, if fan service is done right, it doesn't bother me. And I don't think that you're saying this episode bothered you. That's certainly not the tone I got from you. But I do think did I get emotional seeing all the hugging between Troy and Riker and Picard? I absolutely did. It just made me so happy that Riker and Troy are still married and they're living on this planet, and they have a life, they have a family life together. So this episode, because we are already in episode 7, it kind of makes me think that maybe this season's not going to wrap up the story completely. I kind of feel like there's going to be a big cliffhanger.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, it's not really. I mean, 3 episodes left, right?
Yeah.
And we haven't got to her homeworld yet, and we haven't learned too much about what the real threat is and who's really behind it. And I think you're 100% right. I mean, like I said, I was expecting it early in episode 2. I had expected this to be a more close-ended story with a little bit of a cliffhanger to season 2. But I don't. At this point now, I don't feel that's possible.
Well,
what do you think, Brooke?
Oh, thank you. I was just going to butt in.
Butt away.
They've already begun production and stuff for season 2, I think, because they had, okayed it.
Right.
I mean, Patrick Stewart from that interview has bought a house in LA.
Right.
So, yeah, and he seemed like he not only wanted to get to do season 2, but he wanted to do the full 3-season plan like they wanted to do. So, spoilers for that interview.
Right. I mean, do you think, just what are your thoughts here? Do you think season 1 will end on a pretty big cliffhanger, or do you feel like they might wrap up more than leave hanging?
I think part of the whole deal of being able to get season 2 greenlit before they even aired season 1 was because it just ends on some sort of cliffhanger, some sort of important thing. I think they cunningly did that. But
yeah, that's
people are gonna want to know.
Oh, sure. I mean, and that's a very valid point here. They could have shown this to the executives and be like, whoa, what an ending. We've got to have that season 2. And this season 1 looks great. So let's just go ahead and do it. I did post something today on our Facebook page. If you are on Instagram, you should definitely be following Michael. I think it's pronounced Chabon. I think I've been pronouncing it wrong this whole time. I'm so sorry. I think it's pronounced Michael Chabon, who is the showrunner and one of the creators and producers, etc. He is on Instagram a lot, and he does these sort of ask me anythings in his stories. And people flood him with questions about Picard, and he of course, coyly answers a lot of them, a la James Gunn style of, maybe, who knows? But he also provides a lot of insight into the process for putting the show together. So if you are on Instagram, I definitely recommend checking out Michael Chabon, following him, and checking out his IG stories, because there's a lot of really interesting questions, and his answers are also very interesting. Some are very cryptic, but they're really a fun read. Alrighty, cool. So sorry?
Oh, I just said cool.
Okay. All right, so we're going to jump into our episode here. This is episode 7, Nepenthe. It was written by Sam or Samantha Humphrey. She's listed as an executive producer on the show Picard. It is directed by Douglas Arniak. Oh, I'm gonna mangle this. Arniokoski. That's the best I can do. I'm very sorry, Douglas.
It works for me.
Because I kept wanting to say Aronofsky, like the director, like the movie director, and I'm like, no, that's not who this is, Rebecca. No. He's also listed as an executive producer on Picard, as well as an executive producer on Short Treks, which are mostly Discovery based. So this episode does star our regulars. Of course, Patrick Stewart, Alison Pill is Agnes Girardi, Issa Briones as Soji, Even Evagora as Elnor, Michelle Hurd as Raffi, Santiago Cabrera as Captain Rios. But we also have Jonathan Frakes returning as Will Riker, Marina Sirtis as Deanna Troi, Jonathan Del Arco as Hugh, Peyton List as Lieutenant Narissa Rizzo, Tamlin Tamita as Commodore O, and Lulu Wilson as Kestra. Talking about this episode. Oh, geez, I lost my notes. There we go. Okay. So in our first scene, we are transported back to the Daystrom Institute about 3 weeks ago. This is something that we've all talked about on the show. This is the conversation between Agnes and Commodore O, where I think, Brooke, you and I agreed that there was more to this conversation than we saw on screen. And sure enough, this is what we didn't see. Basically tells Agnes that she knows all the details of her meetings with Picard, and they want Agnes to go with Picard on his mission. And at first she's like, and it seems like she's never even been off-world, to be honest. I wouldn't be surprised if she's never been off-world.
Yeah. When she was actually there, she's like, space is so empty. I thought it'd be more fun. So, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, throughout the show, she's really been saying things that make it clear that she's not accustomed to space travel. So in this scene, we get what we had. I believe, Brooke, you were the one who said this. That you said you felt that Commodore O in this missing scene showed Agnes something that caused her to kill Bruce Maddox in a previous episode, where she said that she wished she didn't know what she knew. She wished she hadn't seen what she seen. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Commodore O mind melds with her, and she shows her a whole bunch of very, disturbing images. We get quick scenes we see Commodore O wearing like some sort of cloak. There's explosions of light. There's explosions on Earth. People seem to be screaming in pain, and there's green blood on their faces. More explosions. Cities are exploding. Everything's exploding. And then somebody seems to commit suicide. And then after seeing this, Agnes is sick. She unfortunately vomits that delicious-looking sushi she was just eating. And then she asks Commodore O, like, what do you want me to do? So she gives her a trap